As a Nintendo guy most of my life, my experience with RPGs have been of the Japanese variety. So when Mass Effect 2 was announced at E3 2009 for my new-to-me Xbox 360, I decided to go back and play the first one and discover what the hype was all about. As someone who had come off of the GameCube and the Wii, the visuals and gameplay of the original Mass Effect really left me floored. The ability to make choices that would impact the story in the game and in the sequel had me giddy with excitement. As someone who was just discovering how much he loved RPGs, Mass Effect was an eye-opening experience to the possibilities gaming had to invite me to live through stories and get to know characters that I would never, ever forget. When the Legendary Edition of Mass Effect was finally announced, I knew that I would be giving the entire trilogy just one more playthrough in my lifetime, in order, with all the DLC, from beginning to end. So while this does function as a partial review of the remastered version of Mass Effect 1, I have a different question I want to ask. Does the first Mass Effect still hold up today? The work that went into remastering and updating the nearly 15-year-old title can't be ignored. The Legendary Edition as a whole is a love letter to fans of the series wanting to relive it. Visually, while still very basic in some areas in terms of an early Xbox 360 game, it was more than enough to get your imagination behind the experience. What BioWare did in the remaster only adds to what your imagination did to fill in the gaps. What's interesting about Mass Effect 1's visuals and overall art direction is that there are many times where the title is incredibly stunning and detailed, and others where you're left wondering why there was no creativity or heart put into where you're exploring. Let me explain. The Citadel is a stunning showpiece. The long loading times from the original 360 being well worth it in order to be blown away by the pristine waters, pearly white motif, and all the interesting alien species that inhabit it. Truly, that very first moment on the Citadel is one of the most impactful moments in gaming. Exploring it and helping, or hurting, her citizens are what make Mass Effect so unique and a standout title. In comparison to the Citadel, or even some of the unique planet locales like Pharos or Noveria, side planets and missions are completely uninspired, using a cookie-cutter, prefabricated base model for nearly every encounter. Now, one could argue that this sameness that you experience on all the random planets is actually part of the lore, and theoretically, you're right. It makes sense why every prefabricated building would be identical. It's prefabricated. But layout is one thing. Interior design, that's another. You don't spend that much time in these places, but it's a shame that all the side quests feel very identical and aren't as memorable. As you experience the set-piece missions, you find yourself truly enamored by the choices Commander Shepard has to make and curious about the outcomes. Well, kind of curious. The Paragon and Renegade system developed for the Mass Effect series is a reskin of the light side and the dark side of the Force that you see in BioWare's previous title, Knights of the Old Republic. There's little nuance to Paragon Commander Shepard. You're a really good person who wants to save the galaxy, who rarely does anything to impact this good person persona. There is never really a moment where you're forced to make a gray area choice where the outcome is truly unknown. The same goes for Renegade. The commander comes across as selfish and a bit of a jerk, alienating everyone around them, forcing them to follow their ideals or basically be shoved out an airlock. Again, there's no nuance. I hope for future Mass Effect games, they don't tell you if a choice was blue or red, Paragon or Renegade, until after you've made it and the consequences, good or bad, set in. The writing and lore in Mass Effect is incredible, with tons of detailed information about each of the alien species and their various concerns. Conversations Commander Shepard has with each of them serve to only deepen the player's interest, and even though I'd heard most of the dialogue before, I couldn't help but sit back and investigate every conversation. I wanted to know and experience all Mass Effect had to offer all over again. As a whole, voice acting in video games has drastically improved over the years, but in 2008, things were still a bit hit or miss sometimes. And it shows in Mass Effect, but in a unique way. Male Commander Shepard's lines, voiced by Mark Meer, don't come across as well as Jennifer Hale's performance as female Commander Shepard. It's disappointing. In my previous playthroughs on the Xbox 360, I always played female Commander Shepard, and thought I would just do male this time for something different. I really wish I didn't. With all that said, everyone else's VO performance is much better. Each of the squad mates, Normandy crew, and most of the conversations you run across are fantastic. It makes me wonder if this is the result of someone recording lines without context, just reading what's on the page without a lot of direction due to the immense amount of dialogue in the game. One thing I loved about Mass Effect's combat, armor, and upgrade system was how versatile it really was, the kind of options that it gave you. The backstory of your Commander Shepard and what kind of abilities they have play directly into conversations you can have and of course how you fight. At its core, Mass Effect is a cover-based shooter. I remember struggling quite a while in the original version on the Xbox 360, finding the combat to be difficult with rough hit detection and not so smooth aiming down the sights. It always felt off to me, especially coming from Call of Duty. However, in the remaster, the controls have been tightened up and it feels much more solid. In fact, so much so that I was easily able to play and beat the game on insane difficulty without much issue. It felt like skill in gunplay was an actual factor where it did not as much in the original version. However, where Mass Effect shines the most is with all the unique powers. In my first playthrough, my Commander Shepard was much more of a commando-style soldier without any powers or abilities. But in my Legendary Edition playthrough, Shepard is a biotic, able to wield the power of the mind to control the battlefield to my liking. Finding or purchasing upgrades and attachments to my weapons and armor, comparing stats, and building an incredible squad is a lot of fun. Equip a poisonous bullet on one party member, a cryo bullet on the next, and a flame bullet on the last to ensure that all of your enemies are melting, freezing, and burning all of the time while floating in a singularity, or just simply frozen in place. My armor? Well, I found regeneration modifications, which help me not need to heal as much. We can hide behind cover for a few moments and recover before charging back in. It's a lot of fun. Commander Shepard's adventure across the galaxy to save the world wouldn't be near as enjoyable without the crew that comes with him. Some, like Joker, the pilot of the Normandy, never set foot on the battlefield while being meaningful and important. Others, such as Garrus, Liara, or Tali, become the focus of deep conversations, friendship, and even romance. I think that one of the reasons the Mass Effect trilogy as a whole impacted me as much as it has is because it was the first time I felt like my friendships and deeper relationships with my companions grew and changed as the story progressed. Their lifelike faces, attitudes, and ambitions were interesting, compelling. Each of the conversations felt real, with an incredible delivery by the voice actors, despite male Commander Shepard's VO feeling a little flat. I think it is this deep connection with the squad that makes Mass Effect what it is. You could literally be doing anything in the galaxy of Merit, but without the squad, it would simply be meaningless. Life is best lived with others to help us out. So, back to the original question. Does Mass Effect 1 hold up today? Kind of. I honestly could never see myself going back to play the original version that was released in November of 2007. It's pretty janky, has quite a few bugs, and don't even get me started on the Mako. I wanted to replay this series, review it all on the channel, but I just decided I would wait and hope that they would finally remaster the game, and they did. Mass Effect 1's Legendary Edition feels like the game I remember. It looks like the game I imagined it being. It absolutely holds up today. This is truly the definitive version of the first Mass Effect and the one that you want to play. With every bit of DLC, improved leveling, combat, and visuals, there's no reason not to begin your journey through this sci-fi epic. I believe it's worth every bit of your money and all the time that you would invest. Do you love RPGs, JRPGs? be sure and subscribe to the channel and leave a thumbs up on this video. Check out some of my other reviews, and we'll see you again next time. Quest well, everybody.